Right, so we're going to have a recap on our Developing Women's Football workshop, which we ran with some clubs last week. So we'll run through some of the slides. It'll be a little bit quicker than the workshop that we ran with people live, just to skip through some of them interactive bits. But hopefully you get the information that was shared throughout that workshop if you missed it with us. A little bit of an agenda for what you'll find on the workshop with us here. So we're going to just recap on the Staffordshire FA strategy and the ambitions and where this stuff around developing women's football is coming from and how that links into some of the bigger picture and strategy around the women's game. And then we're going to look at the three elements of the women's game, which as a club that you can look to kind of develop within. So 11v11, the more traditional type game, the recreational space, and then women's walking football, which is something that's quite new to the county. Firstly, just looking at the FA strategy. So this is one from the main central FA. This is a national approach and the national strategy. And you can see just by this one in the strategic priorities that delivering equal opportunities for women and girls to play is one of the 5 strategic priorities for this strategy. Obviously, this is year 1 of 4 at the moment. So hopefully you'll kind of continue to see more of a focus go towards that over in the grassroots space over the next few years. Coming down to the strategy for Staffordshire specifically, I've highlighted a few things here in green for everybody that link into some of this space. So firstly, looking at that support the game strand in our Staffordshire FA strategy, that improved physical and mental well-being section is very much linked into the recreational space and the walking football space. And the clubs and leagues at the heart of community is very specific, because obviously it's you guys at the clubs and the leagues which are delivering football down on the ground to the people that want to play the game. Moving across to developing the game, increasing community playing choice. So like we mentioned before, we're talking about 3 different types of women's football today. The women's 11v11, the recreational space and walking football. So again, just in them 3 things, there's quite a variety of choice there. And we want to be continuing to offer that the best we possibly can across all areas of the game. And then moving across to leveling the score, some of you will know that was one of our projects that we launched last February, and then it's been introduced and developed, worked into this strategy for the next 4 years. So this is essentially around delivering that equal opportunities piece, which links into that wider FA strategy, but also kind of supporting those clubs, leagues and people on the ground to kind of raise awareness around the game, linking into maybe some education pieces, some networking pieces, and if we can support with funding, whether that be applications to bigger funds or what we can provide or suggest ourselves, then obviously there's the that's the link in there. Moving on to protecting the game, this was a new strand to the strategy for this kind of 4 years. And I've just highlighted there cascading good governance and principles and practice. So this might link into like representation and a bit of a leadership piece to ensure that the women and girls game is part of kind of the governance and the principles and practice which clubs and leagues are trying to grow, and that's from the top down, not just those in the game that want to kind of promote the game as well. And then also uniting the game. I've highlighted there that inclusion and community cohesion. So you'll probably know that in that recreational space, and I think in the women's game as a whole, being inclusive, it being quite social led, it being about building relationships and that network, including as many people as we can in that network and in that community is really key for it to be successful. So also just highlighted that there for that purpose. Looking at ambitions for the future, our current status is that we've got 25 women's teams playing in kind of Staffordshire Girls and Ladies League, West Midlands, the Women's Regional League, or the FA Women's National League. We We've got 23 teams on 7 sessions that sit within that recreational space. So again, some of you will know that the Staffordshire Girls and Ladies League run their midweek division, which is a 7-a-side women's football kind of competition. There's 3 divisions within that which have different player eligibility rules, and hopefully cater for different levels of kind of competition within that as well. And we've got 7 kind of just play centres, which are just kind of turn up and play type activities. And then, as I mentioned right at the beginning, walking football is a relatively new space for us in the women's game, in particular in Staffordshire, and it's something that we really want to focus on, look into the future. So we've just had our first women's walking football session set up in Burntwood, and we want to see that kind of grow into more sessions and potentially more teams. Look into the future, and that might end up being similar to how the mixed or male walking football kind of leagues and sessions are set up, but we'll kind of see how that goes over the next few years as to where that takes us. Targets for 2028, so kind of growing that number of 11v11 teams. This will hopefully help with the strength and competitiveness of our local county kind of leagues, but also helping clubs and teams progress up the National League system as well. Having an offer for as many people that want to play in that traditional space as possible. In that recreational space, we're seeing some real success within that area at the minute, but we also want to see a little bit more given to those that just want to turn up and play, maybe lacking a little bit of experience, don't feel like they want to be involved in that competitive environment at all. So we really want to see a bit of a growth in that recreational space over the next few years as well. And like I said before, that walking football space is a real target, so we're looking to really get that off the ground and get some clubs on board to help us deliver that over the next few years. So firstly, looking at the women's 11v11 game. Firstly, I kind of want to say, if we're looking at establishing a team for the 25-26 season, we're only about 6 months out from that and the season start at this point, kind of at the start of February now. So, by the time you get to kind of June, July, you kind of have to have your team pretty much kind of ready to go, ready for that September start date. Summer can be a bit of an awkward period for people as well in terms of holidays, and if they've got kids and things as well, people can be in and out a little bit over that summer period, which can be difficult. So the work really starts now to get that team in place for kind of 3 or 4 months' time, so that you're then ready for that September start with the league. I'm going to go through a little bit of a process as to what that might look like if you're looking at establishing a team. However, that's not to say that this is the only way. You could have a different approach, and that might work just as well. But this is just one way and one example as to what this might look like if you're starting off. So firstly, you might be looking at kind of a coach recruitment, having somebody who's really going to spearhead the project and get the team off the ground. Within this coach recruitment space, you're probably going to look for 3 things. Firstly, whoever you bring in, what's their kind of purpose? Why are they getting involved in the game? Why are they wanting to be involved in the women's game? And does that purpose fit the same as the club purpose as well in that women's 11v11 space? And then going to go kind of upwards on that list. So kind of personality, does their personality really suit the women's game? Coaching a women's team is quite different sometimes to coaching in the youth game. So knowing that right from the beginning is also useful to know. Just because they've been a really successful youth team coach and they might have taken a team from under 8 girls all the way through to under 18 girls, when you start to get some of them older players and women involved in a women's team, the dynamics of that and that relationship between coach and player changes quite quickly. So making sure that the personality of the coach in there is really suited towards the women's game as well, and the approach that they might take to coaching is also going to be really important. And then kind of going up from that again is like experience. So if you're happy, and this probably links into that next bit as well around team ambitions, if you're happy for your team to just be turning up on a Sunday, having a laugh and a joke, enjoying playing the game and being involved, a relatively low qualified and low experienced coach may be fine. Just because they've only got their introduction to coaching football doesn't mean that they can't be a really good coach and a manager in a women's team. However, it might be suited more towards a particular type of women's team, in maybe that recreational space or that development space. Alternatively, if you're looking to be really competitive and you want to progress players, you might be looking for a coach who's got a little bit more experience in the game, has maybe done it for a little bit longer in terms of years coaching, or previously worked with a women's team or in the women and girls game. And they say might be looking at kind of UEFA C license or level 2 in old terms, kind of or above, to help really push on that coaching aspects, managing players, and player development in that kind of developmental competitive space if you want to progress that team through the pyramid. Linking into then establishing team goals, this is probably interchangeable with coach recruitment and where it is in the pathway. You might do this before you bring a coach in. However, really understanding what the purpose of having that team is, because that will very much dictate the types of players that you then bring in to be a part of that team. If you're happy for it to be a recreational kind of space, people want to turn up and just play a little bit of football on a Sunday. There isn't too much. Yes, you want it to be competitive, but there isn't too much pressure on getting promoted or playing your best football every week. It's more about enjoyment and that social aspect of the game. Then that might dictate what types of players you bring in. It also might have kind of flourished from maybe one of the midweek teams in the 7v7 space, and therefore the players that are involved will probably be of more recreational minded. Kind of moving the next kind of stage I see there is kind of that development space. So this is where you might have a younger cohort of players potentially that have progressed from like under 18s, can't play in that under 18s division anymore, but they're still quite young in terms of women's football, maybe kind of below that under 21s, under 23s, something like that. Or even if not all of the players kind of fit within that age bracket, the vast majority may do. So that development football is going to be probably what you're targeting. It might be a progression from under 18s that are going to make up the vast majority of that squad. And then that competitive element is where I've kind of thought it might be a little bit a combination of them things, but ultimately the aim for the team may be finishing in the top 2, having a really good cup run, or getting to a point where the team is higher up the National League system. So that could be that you're looking to get promoted at the end of the season or within 2 seasons. So therefore you want to recruit players that are maybe a little bit more experienced. I've been in the game a little bit longer, or more competent as players, potentially possess a little bit more ability than maybe the average recreational player. So what your team ambition is may dictate how your player recruitment is then approached. So moving on to that stage, player recruitment might come from a pathway. So if we said before, that if you've got an under 18s team or an under 16s team that's then going into adults football, that is one aspect. If you've got a recreational team, which is then developing into a women's team thereafter, or are you going out trying to recruit experienced players and trying to create an attractive package for players to come and play with you at the club? But hopefully this is all things that you need to kind of think about and complete over the next probably 3 to 4 months, because by the time you get to kind of June time, you should be in a position there to affiliate your team for the 25-26 season, and enter or put your league registration in, ready for the season to start in September. The deadline for that is usually around July time, so that the league can arrange fixtures. So make sure you've got that kind of in your mind as the period where you need to have things kind of sorted out for. And obviously the entrance into league is the Staffordshire Girls and Ladies League for us. The majority of people in the county would then feed into that league as their first league that they'd enter in. And then hopefully kind of by the time you get to that June time anyway, you're looking at pre-season training, and then kind of starting the season come September. These were some of the things that were put in when we did our interactive section in our workshop. So looking at influencing factors that contribute to the success of a women's 11v11 team. So having suitable facilities, having some funding, potentially that might be internal or external sources. Coaches will very much have a impact on the success of that team. Opportunities for different competitions. So like I said before, it might be that you're entering it at Division 1 because you've got a very recreational kind of space. But if you feel like you're more competitive, then you obviously can look to have that conversation with the Girls' League as well as to whether there's a more suitable opportunity available. But obviously that can be that would have to be taken up with the league on a more individual approach. And the same would then apply in the rec divisions as well. Social groups, I think, is a really important thing to kind of highlight here for those that maybe haven't been massively involved in the women and girls space before. They're doing it something as new or want to kind of complete that pathways in their club. From experience, social groups have a massive influence on the team. And often women's players won't come on their own. They'll come as groups or of 2 or 3, or if they do come on their own, they might know somebody else who then wants to join them at a later date. Similarly, it can have the opposite effect that if you lose a player at one point, you might end up losing 2 or 3 because of the social group that they've kind of created in that experience. So always worth kind of being aware of. Obviously got facilities again there. Yeah, and I think this one here, more teams and local leagues at different formats. So I think that's just saying essentially that there's more opportunities available at the minute in different areas of the game. So that might contribute to the development of the game, and more opportunities for females to participate, which again is happening by having this workshop and clubs wanting to do that a little bit more and having some club support as well. So if you're a women's team on your own, your chances are that you've only got the support of your coaches, your managers, and those that are looking after themselves, very much the way Sunday league football kind of works in the male and mixed game. However, if you're a club that has got full pathways in male, female pathways, have got a men's first team, have got a development team, and then trying to put a women's team in there as well and complete that pathway. You might be looking to work within the disability pathway as well. And the club committee are really supportive of the developing in the women's game as well, then that club support will really be felt by the women's kind of team and section. So really worth kind of exploring that as well. Looking at some of the requirements, recommendations and considerations, kind of moving into this space, is that firstly, then required things will be pretty much the same as every team that you put in, whether it be youth, whether it be adult, yeah, in the male or in the female game. So kind of the normal things. Your club will have public liability insurance, your team needs to be affiliated, you'll have to register with a league, you'll have to have some playing kit and some equipment to be able to coach some sessions. The coach must be DBS checked. They've got their player welfare course, which is a requirement of the adults game. They've potentially done their safeguarding courses and their first aid course as well, because in the adults game then you've potentially got some under 18 players as well, because you can play adults football from 16 to 18. And there's toilets and changing room facility at the facilities that you're playing at your home ground. So they're the things that you probably need to have in place. Most of them things will be normal things that you'd have to do for every team, but worth make sure that that's kind of ticked off and ready to go. We've got some recommended things there in the middle. So thinking about that coach, having that coaching qualifications. So it might be the I2CF, it might be UEFA C, it might be UEFA B if you want to really push the push that development pathway a little bit more. Having that club support, we talked about that in the last slide. So making sure that the women's team is being supported by the club committee, and maybe they'll come down to support you at games, at home games. It might be that you can go to them for any queries, questions, or anything that it might come up throughout the season. It might be financial support as well, so it might be something that's linked to that. So that club support piece could be quite big or it could be quite small, depending on how the club is set up as well. You might have a club or like a training kit or club kit. Again, it gives people that identity, so it would be kind of recommended that we look into that, whether that be through sponsorship or whether it be something that the club provides. I would look at that because when people go to training, or if you've got new people particularly coming to training, then it makes everybody feel like they're part of one club, one team. They've got that identity, and it looks a little bit more professional as well, which helps with that player recruitment point. And then having female club team officials. Again, I think this is really important. If you've got a women and girls pathway, having female representatives on the club committee can also be really good practice to ensure that the club is set up in a to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. Similarly, in the team, you might have a female coach or a secretary who, again, can be a little bit more available maybe for players, or they've got that someone of like-minded or similar gender to them who can make that environment a little bit more comfortable potentially in some respects. And that's no criticism to men at all, in that there's plenty of men that are working in the women's game at the minute, but we are definitely trying to encourage a few more females stepping into the women's game in particular. We've got quite a lot in that youth game at the moment, so yeah, really trying to help kind of push and promote getting some more female coaches in the women's game as well, which would be really good. And just some things to consider. What the facilities are like. So obviously there's certain facility requirements like toilets and change rooms, but also worth considering how these are managed. Do they always have toilet rolls? Do the toilet doors lock? Are there sanitary bins and products available? Are they clean and tidy? So you might find that going to a women's game, which is 2 o'clock on a Sunday kickoff, there's been a men's Sunday league team in beforehand, and has the change room been swept kind of beforehand, the women's team kind of come in, or is it, it's the last game at a weekend, so if nobody's been in to check them change rooms and check them toilets or restock anything throughout that weekend, then being last game on a Sunday is usually it might not lend itself to having immaculate kind of facilities by the time it gets to that point in the weekend. So worth considering how them facilities are managed, as well as what they actually might look like. Also, whether linking into that pre and post match arrangements, is there somewhere that players can kind of what time they can access facilities, and is there anywhere for them to go post match? So it might be that they want to arrange sandwiches or post match food and stuff as well with the opposition team. Is there a bar area? Is there a local pub or cafe which you could utilize for kind of post match arrangements as well? So that also kind of links into facilities there. Looking at that finance and sponsorship, kind of what is it that's going to come from the club directly? What is it that the team are going to look to fund themselves? Do players pay fees and subscriptions like in the youth game, or is that kind of free to play like it is in the men's game potentially? So also worth considering the financial aspects of the women's 11v11 game and where that sits in terms of equality and diversity as well. Is it on par with the men's team and how men's team may be treated? However, also got to consider that if you're entering a new team, you're probably going to play, or you will be playing in the bottom division of the Girls and Ladies League at county level, whereas an established men's team might be further up the pyramid and hence have league restrictions and things like that on having to play at certain pitch sizes and quality pitches, having barriers, spectators, and ticketed games and things like that. So if you're at different levels of the pyramid, that also has an effect on what some of them game requirements are, but also worth considering what that looks like for you as a club as well, and how you want to set that up yourselves. Also, say, is there anywhere for spectators to get kind of refreshments? Is there a cafe? Is there a table on the side of the pitch? Is there a bar area or things like that where spectators can get some drinks and stuff? Because the bigger your fan base, the more support your women's team will have, and obviously that helps teams in that adults pathway as well. And in that club pathway point of view, so again, have you got a pathway below the club or below the women's team to be able to then feed into that kind of year on year and provide that development pathway for younger adult players as well? Couple of case studies for you here. So Chasetown set up their women's team at the end of last season. They managed to recruit quite a high qualified female coach or manager to head the team, and they've very much gone into it in the same way that they have the men's football. Their ambition was to get promoted and get into the National League system, have really competitive players, and really develop that women's football at the club. And so far this season, they've definitely shown that that has been the case, and they've been quite successful in doing that. A different example being Pelsall Villa Colts. They have developed from being a recreational team, which played in that mid-Greek division, and then they got a little bit more interest of people wanting to be involved in the women's 11v11 game. So they decided that we were going to form that women's team as a development from the recreational division beforehand. Very different type of player. But again, they've managed to get the team off the ground, which is a real success. And they've got women now playing weekly in that Division 1 of the Girls and Ladies League. So two kind of real success stories from last year that have gone down different approaches to setting up women's teams, which is great. This is the current Staffordshire FA kind of representation of the National League kind of women's football pyramid or National League system. Apologies for the lack in quality. It doesn't seem to have come through very well when I've copied it onto the slide. But obviously, as you can see there, you'll enter at the bottom, which is Tier 7, usually in Division 1, which sits just outside the pyramid. But for this purpose and for the visual, we've kind of put it all together. So you'll enter it to Tier 7 in the Girls and Ladies League. If you would then win the Premier Division of the Girls and Ladies League, providing you applied for promotion and meet the promotion criteria set by the National League system and women's football pyramid, you would then get promoted to Tier 6, which is the West Midlands Regional Women's League Division 1, which we'd sit in Division 1 North in Staffordshire, and we've currently got 6 teams that sit within that division. The Premier Division of that league is Tier 5, and again we've got kind of 2 clubs that sit within that at the moment. Kind of alongside that sit just outside the pyramid, we've got the FA Women's National League Reserves Division. So that links into above Tier 3 and 4. That we've got nobody in Tier 4 at the moment in the county, but then at Tier 3 we've got 2 teams in being Stoke City Women and Calcer, and then both of their development teams or reserve teams kind of play in that National League Reserves division as well. So that's their kind of younger teams, under 23s, under 21s, them type of players that kind of sit within that. So that falls just slightly outside the pyramid, but to make sure we've included everybody, we've kind of put it in alignment with that just below the National League. And then above that, obviously, if at some point Stoke or Castle were to do really well in their league, they'd then get promoted to their Women's Championship, which is Tier 2, and then the WSL being the one above that. So just so you know what that looks like, it gives you that visual of how the women's pyramid is structured. Moving on, we're going to start to look at that recreational football space now. And I've got kind of 2 strands to this. So I'm firstly going to talk about Just Play. Just Play is an FA programme which is designed around adult football, which does, as it says on the tin really, you kind of turn up and just play. This is managed on our new book football system, which it's launched this year, and we're hoping to get some more providers kind of transitioned onto that system as we are at the moment. These sessions, these Just Play sessions, it's an adult session, but it can be set into different categories. So, for example, a women's Just Play session can be set up, and that might be for any age above 18. And you can just turn up, have a bit of a knock around, and then go home again, and you kind of pay and play, it may be. It can also be set up for walking football, which we'll talk about afterwards, but it can also be utilised in the male mixed and disability game as well. So you might have at your club already, you might have a mixed or male walking football session, which is set up as a Just Play centre. or you might have a male turn up and play kind of just play centre already set up kind of within your club. The same applies for the women's pathway. It's just a turn up and play session which you can utilise there. I think those that might have been involved in Staffordshire football for a little bit longer than me will remember kind of my predecessor set up a programme called Mums Play. And this is very much along the same lines as that. So what we want to see here is that in this just play kind of area that we're trying to engage as many women as possible to just turn up and have a go. So it might be that you're targeting mums of your youth teams and you want them to get involved in your teams, in your Just Play Centre. It might be that you put it out to all the local schools and a group of female teachers are going to come down and have a play. It might be that you just advertise in your community, in your areas, and you get women from all over your kind of local area come and just play. Moving kind of a step on from that was that when that Mums Play was initially launched, it was really successful, and it got kind of passed over to the Girls and Ladies League because people wanted to play some fixtures, and they wanted to develop the offer a little bit more so they could kind of just have their turn up and play type sessions. But you could also create like a small-sided 7v7 women's team. And the way I kind of see this at the minute is that it's like the bridge between 11v11 football and just play. It's like a combination or kind of an in-between stage between the two. At the minute, there's currently 3 divisions within the Girls and Ladies League. The top division, you can have any player, even if they are currently playing with a women's team on a Sunday. And then the 2 divisions below that are strictly kind of recreational players, so you can't be signed to any team within the women's football pyramid to be able to play within divisions. But there's 2 divisions there, so one is slightly more competitive than others. Obviously, this Mums Play programme was set up probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, so those that have been involved with it right from the beginning have got quite competitive, hence that kind of 2 different levels and 2 divisions were created. So that's kind of the middle stage between just playing, probably targeting those with limited experience, might have never had the opportunity to play at school or in their youth, and they want to come and have a go. It might be that they've been inspired to have a go because their daughter has taken up football, or their son has taken up football, and they want to have a go themselves because it's something that they never got the opportunity to do. So that would be very much targeted towards just play. Whereas you might have a group of women which have come to you saying, "Oh, we used to play football as kids or in my early adulthood, but I just stopped playing and I want to kind of take it up again. So I wanted to play some small-sided football." It might be a group of women that went away and had kids, and they wanted to get back into the game before maybe progressing on to going into the 11v11 game. They wanted to play a little bit of small-sided football first, just to get them back into the swing of playing. So, and that would be that midweek kind of division there, that 7v7 small-sided football that still allows that element of competition within the structure. We had a little bit more of a discussion around this, hence why there isn't loads of things on the screen. So we said what could make women's recreational football kind of appealing for players, and we had a bit of a discussion around this, kind of off the interactive Slido on the screen, as you can see here. But 2 really key points. As we said before, women's football is quite a social place, but also it's an opportunity for women to have a social. It might be that you have your Just Play Centre and then you can go and have a drink at the bar afterwards, or it might be that it's running in the middle of the day, so after you've had your Just Play, they go and sit in the leisure centre cafe and have a coffee together as well after they've participated in the game, or in that little bit of activity. Also, you might find in events like park run and things like that, a lot of older women would do it with a partner or with a friend. So if they're going to get involved, they might want to bring a friend with them. So that social aspect is going to be really important, probably for recruitment of players, but also for it to retain your players as well and have that really nice kind of positive environment around the game. The other one being fitness. Obviously, you want to kind of get as many people involved in the game as possible, and that fitness piece is probably one of the things that will appeal to people as well. It might be people that haven't been involved in football for a long time, so they want kind of that step into football so that they can get a little bit of fitness back as well. And it's kind of a nice social environment where they get to do a little bit of physical activity as well. Few things to consider around the women's recreational football. So firstly, kind of date and time of your session. So does it fit in with what a mum would stereotypically do, or whatever target audience you're trying to get to come to your sessions? And is the facility kind of set up accordingly, and is it attractive for a women's football kind of offer there? So does it have a cafe, does it have a bar area or something that people can utilise afterwards? And that social aspect, is it clean and tidy, is it well kept, is it managed well, is it also in the kind of be used in the winter as well? So is it kind of 3G, is it grass, things like that, all them things to consider there. Firstly, the next one being age of players. So again, are you targeting that kind of mum's age, or a cohort of mums? So maybe not age specific, but you might have a range of players that go from mid-20s up to kind of 40s, mid-40s, 50s. That kind of, it might be. Are you explicitly looking at over 35s? Or over 30s, or are you going to categorize that age of players at all? Are you just going to make it just play anybody from 18 plus can come and play? It might be that you've got an under 18s team which they want to keep playing, but they don't want to kind of, you haven't got enough players for a women's 11v11 team, or there isn't that ambition to really play in the women's game, but they still want to have a bit of a play and a bit of a social. So this midweek division might be great, so that just 18 plus would work perfect for that as well. But also considering what the purpose is, because if you've got some of them 18-year-olds that are just coming to have a go and have a play, or play within a midweek team, and you've got people that are kind of early, late 40s, 50s potentially, as well, getting involved. Does the session cater for all of them people, or is there going to be a little bit of like a clash, or kind of a split purpose with that? Would you be better just targeting maybe one specific target group, and then if you get interest from another, you could maybe set up another team or another session which is more relatable for that group that you're targeting. Also thinking about a little bit on life balance. So you might find that kind of women from the age of 25 to 45, 55, or whatever the age band may be, they might have a lot going on in life. They might work shifts, they might be in different patterns, they might just not be able to commit to the women's game, so they want to play a little bit of recreationally instead, as and when they can. It might be that they've got kids, or they've got a kid, or multiple kids, and they've got to try and balance when they can participate in physical activity and football, more specifically around what activities their kids are doing as well. So if they're already involved in your club, that makes it a little bit easier, and you can maybe balance that out a little bit more. But also just making it really easy to get involved. The more restrictions you put on, the more that'll kind of put people off, I think, as well. So just being careful that other people are going to have lots going on outside of football, and football probably isn't their priority. It'll be a nice to do, not a need to do for a lot of people in this space. So kind of making it easier and making it accessible is something to really kind of keep in the forefront kind of your mind when you're setting up these kind of sessions and trying to get people to come down. We've got a couple of kind of examples here of different ways you could set up your pitch and where your women's rec session could kind of sit. So you might have a load of youth sessions on at Wildcats, under 8s, 10s, 12s potentially, and then the women and then parents and mums of them kids could then join in a women's rec session kind of alongside. It might be that you have all your women and girls rec activity going on at the same time. So you might have a Wildcat and a Squad Girls centre already set up, and you might want to have a women's rec and a walking football session going on alongside that. So all the people involved in that recreational space are participating in the game at the same time. It might be that you have all your women's football kind of on the pitch at the same time as well. So you might have that under 16s, under 18s, that development squad potentially kind of on, and then your women's 11v11 squad kind of on as well, training either together or at the same time. And then you might have your women's rec activity going on kind of at the opposite end as well. So you've kind of got all your women's stuff going on the pitch at the same time. Obviously, we know that this might not always be feasible for teams and clubs and stuff. Facilities is obviously a massive area, which is quite difficult sometimes, but these are just some ideas and examples that you might be able to take forward if you can. Couple of case studies here for you as well. So Stafford Soccer Mums set up quite a few years ago now, but probably the biggest recreational women's kind of club or centre going on across Staffordshire, and might even push it as to say, in the region or in the country maybe, without looking at the figures. But yeah, they regularly have, lots of women. They've got 6 recreational teams set up, and 70, 80 women probably involved in the club, which is brilliant. And it's all come from being involved in this kind of recreational space. And women that just want to turn up and have a go, and then join that kind of midweek league and stuff as well, which has come off the back of just turning up and having a go. Britain Social Ladies, again, got I think 2 or 3 teams in the league now. And again, I've kind of set up primarily of mums, but they've got a variety of people involved, and they've kind of really started to grow that within their club. And then AFC Fradley, probably a newer club of the 3. But again, I went up to Fradley a few weeks ago for a workshop. Jen was helping us out with a Step Over the Sidelines workshop, and she got 35, 40 women kind of at that session ready to go and wanting to just kind of turn up, have a go, play a little bit of football. And again, I think they've got kind of 3 teams now in the recreational space. So I think across these kind of 3 clubs, they kind of make up over 50% of the girls' league recreational kind of divisions, or the teams that we have in the county, which is really great that they've had such kind of success in this space. Lastly, I'm just going to have a quick chat around women's walking football. This is something that we're really trying to grow in the county. It can be set up as a just play centre. So as I mentioned in the last, in that recreational space, in that last kind of section, walking football can be set up as a just play centre as well, where you can just turn up and play. We can utilise the football system, and that is all the same. The only difference being is you would select walking football and female as their 2 kind of just play programme criteria, rather than it just being female specific. And this might be targeting maybe a slightly older population of women who probably missed out on playing playing football themselves. They probably didn't have the opportunity to when they were at school or at college or in their childhood. So it might be quite a difficult target market to get on board. But actually, you'll probably find that they're really grateful for an opportunity to get involved in something new. But similarly, this might not always be the case. Just because it's walking football, it doesn't have to be targeted towards an older population. You could open it out to all ages. It could be from 18 plus, it could be from 25 plus, 30 plus, 35 plus, if you want to put an age on it. It doesn't just have to be for that traditional 50 plus, what you see in the men's or mixed kind of space. Again, we were running out of time a little bit on this workshop when we did this live, so there isn't loads to go on this slide, but I do talk about it a little bit on the next one, so I'm going to skip past this one. So I've had a few conversations with clubs and teams over the last probably 6 to 9 months around walking football, and people are really keen to put it on and provide this opportunity. But as I showed you at the beginning, we've currently only got 1 walking football or women's walking football session. So there seems to be this little bit of fear around setting this programme up at the moment, or this project up. And I don't know if that is linked to maybe cost of facilities and not wanting to pay out for facilities that maybe it's going to take a little bit longer to get some people in and participate in. Whether there's a little bit of fear around it just not working and not being able to get the participants in, or the session not really not going as we planned, and or whether there's a bit of a fear around demand that you're not going to be able to recruit the participants for the session. But I'm going to share a couple of things with you now, which hopefully kind of gives you an idea of what to take away some of these aspects of fear, and what opportunities are available really to show in this space. So first things first is that There's 19 women currently 50 plus that are engaged across the county. So if you think that, across the county, across Staffordshire, only 19 women 50 plus are currently involved in football, in a participation space. This is a really, really small number. So there must be a lot more women that would like to get involved in the game, but just don't feel like they have the opportunity. So that's one to bear in mind. Kind of the next step down from that, the next age bracket down, is there's 85 women that are 40 to 49, and only 6 of them are playing in the 11v11 space. So kind of 70 or nearly 80 women that are 40 to 49 are currently in that recreational space, but there might be so much more that want to get involved but don't feel like they can play recreational football. They might need that walking football just as a ease them in. And I'm sure there's far more women than that want to get involved in the rec space as well. So worth keeping in mind. 55% of women, 55 to 84, felt incapable. So this data has come from Sport England's Active Lives survey, but which is specific to Staffordshire around physical activity. And I think this is really key, that actually if they didn't feel like they could get involved, or actually you can tell them walking football is something that everybody can do. Everybody can, or the majority of people, can walk from A to B. So actually, have you thought about having a go at walking football? Because it doesn't matter if you're not the fittest, or it doesn't matter if you don't feel comfortable kind of playing in that traditional space or that recreational space with people that may be a little bit fitter or something like that. You can just come and have a go, and walking football is kind of a safer entrance into that. Another one from the Active Lives survey from Sport England was that 16% of women 55 to 74 felt there was no opportunity. And looking at the data above, that's probably true. Actually, a lot of women that sit within that kind of older women's category, that are older than the traditional players in the 11v11 in the recreational space at the minute, felt there isn't anywhere for them to get involved. So actually, walking football would really fill that gap. To be that bridge between getting, not doing anything and getting involved in the game. There are currently 16 walking netball sessions across the county. So this might be a cohort of people that might want to give walking football a go, and it'd be worth finding out where your local walking netball session may be, to see if any of them women also want to have a go at walking football. Also bearing in mind is when these walking netball sessions may be, because you wouldn't want to put your walking football session on at the same time. And also kind of one thing to think about here is actually walking football and in the recreational space as a whole. There's 3,688 youth female players, and there's probably another 20,000 mixed youth players, or mixed gender, or kind of male youth players. So with both of them things in mind, there's probably 20 to 25,000 parents or mums in the county that are involved in the game because their child plays. So why aren't we trying to engage them in the recreational space and participate yourself? So there's loads of people involved in the game. So can we really tap into that kind of network of parents? It might be to get involved coaching, it might be to get involved just playing the game themselves. And remember that this is recreational in either in the recreational space that might be more active, or the walking football space. They can just turn up and have a go when they can. And they don't have to commit to being there completely every week. So really worth utilising that network of parents that are in the game as well, particularly if you're at a club that's got a big youth kind of pathway and network as well. That is the kind of end of our workshop. So if you've got any questions, or you've got any comments at all, or you want any help and support in developing women's football at your club, please get in touch. And hopefully chat to you soon. Thank you.